Thanks for tuning in to the FATT Show. I'm D.
I'm Kevin.
And the FATT Show is football all the time. We talk NFL, Pac-12, Oregon Ducks, and tonight we are talking about the University of Washington Huskies and their 2017 recruiting class, Kevin.
Wow.
Nice recruiting class, ranked number 22 or so nationally.
5 in the Pac-12.
Good recruiting class. What are your feelings about? Well, let's first of all, let's go back to last year and talk about how they did. And of course, they had a great season last year.
Yeah, it's always good to kind of reflect back what they did last year in retrospect. You know, looking at what this team did, an amazing run. When you look at 12-2 overall, getting to the college football playoff.
Winners of the Pac-12.
Winners of the Pac-12. That was huge, especially with the competition that was going within, especially the North Division. Facing teams like Oregon, Stanford, so on. And we look at how they were, again, only losing to Alabama. Mm-hmm. Now, that's something to be said as well when you're facing a juggernaut like that of the SEC, an SEC team. But when we look at that, that being their only loss, and we see, again, what they were able to do with Jake Browning, who is quite a quarterback. Heisman candidate was talked about last year.
Yeah, great quarterback.
What I'm excited about when we think about Jake Browning and seeing how, as a quarterback, you think about each year, it's the progression of a quarterback and what he's able to do, not only off the field, but of course we're talking on the field. When you look at what he was able to do as far as the passing of 3,430 yards in passing, this guy had a 167% quarterback rating. Really, when you look at how he was able to not only pass the ball to his playmakers, a la John Ross, who is going to be a missing link this year.
Well, he is for sure. That's a big loss for them. He is going to go pretty high, I think, in the NFL draft, setting the record at the Combine for the 40-yard dash at 4.22 seconds, which broke Chris Johnson's record of, I think it's 4.26, somewhere in there. So anyway, he is the new record holder, which is lightning fast.
Right, and when you lose a player like that, of that caliber, a player like John Ross that was able to play in space, very agile, very quick on his feet, but then bursts of speed in the open field.
For sure.
So Jake Browning would definitely miss somebody like that. And then you look at also too the quarterbacks. Now, we were talking about how Jake Browning can be, again, his progression, doing better this year, learning more of seeing different defenses and learning how to play with that from a passing to even, he can run as well, but more so his passing efficiency. But really, we look at health as far as a quarterback and what they're able to do. We have KJ Carter, who is going to be a junior, and you have Dante Pettis, who is also a quarterback there behind. So sometimes an injury can take place, and you may need the stable of quarterbacks to kind of back you up to kind of keep that season going if they're going to play really well. You look at their running back, Myles Gaskin, Levon Coleman, senior running back Levon Coleman, who did really well last year, and Myles Gaskin at that too, having that 1-2 punch as one strong back, one quick back, as it were. And so we kind of look at all that together, and you kind of put it all together, D. You see, when we're talking about how it got into recruiting, what is left to put back in the shelf? What does Chris Peterson need to do? So he has to amass athletes, defense, the defensive line, the defensive backfield, outside linebackers, and even from a standpoint of even on the offense as well.
I think one of the players we want to talk about here, Elijah Molden from Oregon, played at Westland High School, won the state championship last year. This guy is maybe one of the best defensive backs to come out of Oregon in quite some time.
They were saying, 20 years?
It's been, that's some sources are saying 10 to 20 years. They haven't seen quite the talent that they believe Elijah. And now again, we've talked about this before too, where, you have somebody that's highly rated. He's a 4-star recruit.
Right.
Sometimes that doesn't pan out. But in this case, he looks like he's the real deal.
Yeah, there's factors that come into play. You think about health. You think about also, too, is it the right system? Is it the right coach? And so a lot of that it plays into that. And I think if you look at his frame, 5'11", 185 pounds, this is a safety, a cornerback that can really put on some weight. He can get stronger. And I think, again, What's interesting about this recruiting, though, is this guy was pretty much supposedly a lock for Oregon, being that his dad played for Oregon.
Alex Molden,
Molden
played in the NFL. Well, and with all of the hype around this kid, you would think that he would be a day one starter.
Right.
But it's obviously you won't know till you get there, and of course your football IQ changes from high school to college. There's you've got to learn a new playbook. Sometimes the terminology is different, and so trying to get to that next level, sometimes that can be a little bit of a stepping stone. I don't think that that's going to be difficult for this kid. I think he's pretty much a day one starter. We'll see, but this is a really good recruiting that Chris Peterson's done here.
And another thing that we've kind of seen lately, we've seen it in UCLA with Miles Jack, we've seen it with some other players. It's become this hybrid player, a player that's basically can play on the defensive end, but they're able to get maybe some touches on the offensive end as well. If you're talking about a player like Elijah Molden, who maybe has a skill set in the offense to do something special as well.
Well, yeah, and he did play offense a lot there at Westland High School, and so he's got quite a bit of talent, and I fully expect him to have a great career up at the University of Washington.
Yeah. Another player we're looking at, though, too, is for University of Washington. And we talk about playmakers for Washington, is this guy named Ty Jones out of Utah, Provo, Utah.
Wide receiver, 6'4", 195. Got some height on him. Maybe a little bit thin build, but it should be a potential replacement for losing John Ross.
Yeah, a lot of times when a player comes in, they're a little thin. They have to gain some muscle. They have to be in the strength and conditioning program a little bit to kind of get that size there. But what is interesting about this guy is that he's got good hands. He's got some good footwork too, as well. But these are some of these skills that, again, develop as time goes on, that he's able to get more playing time, more experience, and then work with the wide receivers coaching. Coaching is so huge here when you're talking about specific positions, something like this in the wide receiver, because obviously Jake Browning has to have somebody as far as targets to throw to. That's the most interesting part of this equation as well, is when you talk about an experienced quarterback, of Jake Browning, and then you have a younger player coming into the fold. It's trying to get that for them to work those kinks out, in a sense, to kind of get comfortable with one another. You have to be comfortable with your receivers to get them the ball. How do they like the ball? Do they like it in a certain area or space? The other thing is, can Jake Browning rely on some of these new recruits that have come in as far as wide receivers? Now, we're not saying that all of them are going to play right away, but again, there could be a potential of where you have injuries that go down. Possibly there's somebody that gets inserted into the roster spot. But interesting when you look at the total picture as far as University of Washington and what the Huskies have done. They have 18 commits total. And we look at the kind of what they were able to put together, one being an athlete, you have 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, 3 cornerback safeties, you had 3 offensive tackles, and then you also had 3 defensive linemen. Again, and I kind of want to touch on that, D. We remember players like Danny Shelton. We remember players that they had on the defensive line that were pretty big guys. And they were able to really, in the trenches where we know it's really important, to get off the line, get penetration on that offense, opposing offense. These guys are like 6'4", 6'5", 220, 230. Yes, putting some size on that frame is a possibility, but again, I didn't see too much from them as far as a recruiting spot on the defensive end. And I think that's where my concern, again, is, as we've talked about, in college football, NFL, again, those trenches are so important to really rebuild. And, when you look at it all across the board, a lot of 4-star recruits.
They had a lot of four-star recruits.
Not a 5-star, but again, we don't want to highlight stars so much. But again, when you're comparing them to somebody like an Alabama or a USC, where they get those 5-star players, this is kind of a more majority 4-star, some 3-stars sprinkled in. We have also an outside linebacker, 1 quarterback, and a punter. So.
Well, and what you've got here is you've got a solid recruiting class. You don't really have, the splashiest name may be the Elijah Molden, but right here you've got what you would consider to be a real solid group of guys. All of them seem to have strong character. academics are important to them. It's going to be a solid group of guys. Nothing that's so over the top splash. But I think these are the kind of guys that Chris Peterson is looking at. The kind of guys that would be just really solid, dedicated, and good character both on and off the field.
And let's remember Chris Peterson once with the Boise State team. You think about what he was able to do there. He didn't get 5-star recruits. He was able to work with the 3-4 stars, and really, those were his guys. That he was able to work, with those type of players. And so I see the same thing here.
And he's come to the Pac-12, and there was some question there. Can he replicate what he was able to do at Boise State? And he's shown that he not only can replicate it, but he can take it to the next level. I mean, he's obviously an excellent coach.
Right. So looking at the total picture as far as what University of Washington is able to do, I think the thing is they'll assess. Really, any coach will assess what they have currently. There's some players that were hurt. Azim Victor is one of them on the defensive line. He was hurt, middle of the season to the end of the season. Wasn't able to play in the college football playoff. That was a missing player, missing in action. So as far as him maybe coming back as a senior. But again, looking at the offense and the defensive line, seeing what you could replenish there from the cupboards, as far as your recruiting, I see a mixture of what they were able to do to kind of maybe work with that. But really, again, you think of Pac-12, you think of offense. You think of offense, scoring power, having that somewhat run game, 1-2 punch, but passing game as well, and putting up points.
Well, and I feel, the Huskies should have another excellent season coming up.
Yeah.
They're really not losing a whole lot. They've still got a lot in the cupboard, as you say. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest loss is John Ross, who was just a great playmaker for them. There are some other options, and of course Jake Browning is going to be able to find his guys. I mean, he's a great quarterback, has good vision. So I do expect that the Huskies will probably, in my opinion, I think that they're the class of the Pac-12. I don't see them taking a step backwards here. I do feel that they will be contending and taking the Pac-12 championship.
Interestingly, that's an honest take. I think the thing is, for me, I kind of believe that they are missing a little something. I feel that on the defensive line, there's some missing there, and when you lose a player like Budda Baker, you lose some of that hard hitting, that nose for the football. They have the potential of having these ones the next man up type of mentality, but I see a little bit hurt on the defensive end. But then again, like you said, losing electrifying player like John Ross, where you again punt returns, kick returns. These are like deciding factors of where it could change the scope of a ball game in your favor, momentum-wise. They're going to miss and lack that. So I don't know. I see them possibly, like you said, being a front runner
at least
in the
contending.
North. Contending.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling. That there may be another team there that may be able to challenge that a little bit. But again, I believe that what University of Washington has put together, as far as that foundation that Chris Peterson has laid, this is a guy that, again, it's about a plug and play. He did that at Boise State. This is something he can do at University of Washington.
He can, and for me, if again, contending and winning it is a whole another thing. But you've got USC, who is playing excellent ball. You've got Colorado playing excellent ball.
Right.
You've got several teams in here that can definitely contend for that. We'll see what happens this coming year. I do think that they will be there for the North. That's my prediction. So I'm calling Huskies for the North. I'm not sure that they can win it all. I do have USC as a strong contender next year as well, and we will be talking about USC coming up in the near future. For right now, I'm D.
I'm Kevin.
And this has been the FATT Show.